Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Coram and Ed Carson here with the breakdown of the action. Not only today, but a look at how this week turned out. And Ed, even though we've got a lot coming in the next week, it feels like what we saw in the last 5 trading sessions were relatively pivotal.
Yeah, this was a really strong week. There were a lot of positives out there. Want to take a look about a lot of things, but I want to look at Etsy, Visteon, and Lam Research. We're all trading around nearby points.
Okay, we'll take a look at those stocks, but first, let's analyze the major indexes. So, a big week here, and the Nasdaq finishing off the week with a gain of just about 1% here to lead on the upside. We also had the Russell 2000 up 0.6%, the S&P 500 up 0.25%, and the Dow lagging, but still up 0.1% here today. So, some critical technical hurdles were cleared this week for a number of the major indexes, namely for the Nasdaq here, that 200-day line. We are now above that level in addition to that December high, Ed.
Yeah, very strong. I was going to say that we had 6 strong closes, and it was a pretty good day. We closed in the upper half today, but as you say, this shows 1.5, and we closed a little under 1%. So there was some selling late in the day, but honestly, a lot of strong closes. We got above a lot of resistance levels. On Wednesday, not so much on the NASDAQ, but on a lot of the indexes, we tested or undercut key levels, and we basically passed that test with flying colors. The S&P, well above the 200-day line now. There's a long-term trend line you could do. It's, just below the December highs. It's maybe a closing high. I'm not sure. It's right around the best close in several months. So a lot of positives there, and to see that regard, leading stocks acted well. So hard not to be pretty positive about how this week went.
So let's see. The closing high on December 1st was 40.76 and change, and the S&P closed today at 40.70 and change. So we're getting very close, right up there. So now we've cleared that trend line on the weekly from the highs. Check. We were waiting for that. Before that, it was the 4,000 level. Before that, it was the 200-day line. And so now it does seem like this 4,100 level, Ed. I mean, we're knocking on that door.
Yeah, and so it really feels like that. So a lot of progress. Still need to get decisively above these levels. There's still a lot of earnings. It's amazing. One of the things that was so surprising about this week, there were a lot of stocks that had lousy earnings or lousy sales or weak guidance, and they still rallied either that day or for the week.
So that's a
So
huge change in character for the
huge
market.
change in character, and the strong closes, which partly reflect the fact that they adjust the earnings and then they come off of that and say, no, we're going to rally anyway. Really big sign, but still a lot of earnings this week. We still have the Fed, a lot of economic data. So it wouldn't be shocking to see a pullback here. It wouldn't be the worst thing either, because we've had a lot, to pause. But I think it's definitely a time to be taking advantage of this. We had a guest today, Eric Kroll, co-author of the Life Cycle Trade, and has been a growth investor in IBD, fan and affiliate for a while. He put out some research just showing that the Nasdaq's gain just through Thursday was one of the strongest we've seen in a long time. Really reflective of like a life-changing rally, or at least a money-making rally. So definitely a lot of positives out there.
That's right. And that happened, that conversation happened this morning on IBD Live, but we are going to be sharing a clip from that with our broader audience on investors.com and YouTube as well. So for all the details on what Eric had to say with his research, comparing this rally to historical market rallies and what that could mean for what we might see unfold here, with that next week coming up being pretty pivotal to that, Ed. The next 5 trading days would mark 20 trading days since the follow-through day. So we will be posting that for everyone here shortly, and maybe going live as we speak. So keep an eye out for that.
Looks like it might be. I was just
Is that
checking that
is it
myself.
out, Ed?
Yeah, it's out there, so that's great.
Perfect. It is out now for you to take a look at investors.com/videos and our YouTube channel. It's already out on our YouTube channel actually. So yeah, check it out. I'll also tweet it out. That was a great conversation. So I'm glad you brought that up, Ed. Okay, adding to our market analysis would be a quick look at the Dow here, getting back above that round number or close to that round number at 34,000, maybe on the verge of clearing a trend line. But the Dow was the leading index in October and November. That leadership has shifted more into the Nasdaq. Ed, do you think that that is more indicative of maybe a risk-on mindset?
Oh, absolutely. And we'll look at more ETFs that'll reflect that as well. I mean, there's definitely areas of the market. There's a lot of strength in the market. So it's not like everybody get into growth stocks and only growth stocks. And it's also nice that Dow may be lagging, but it's not losing. It's still doing well. So it's a broad-based rally that is lifting all boats right now.
That it is. And IWM, which tracks the Russell 2000, let's take a look at this ETF. It's at or close to its highest levels in a number of months here, right around that November peak. So that's great to see. Like you said, rising tide lifting all boats here. And on a sector level, let's take a look at what we had. Not a great finish to the week for energy stocks. XLE here, of course, Chevron being a big component of this ETF. But let's take a look at the action for the week. Still up. So this is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 up weeks in a row for XLE, XME. Let's take a look at metals and mining stocks up 2% or so for the week. Let's check in on retail. XRT, a big week for retail, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just e-commerce. There's a lot of stocks out there that looking strong. Again, the sectors, the market's saying we're not going into a recession. Now, we'll see if we are going to go into recession, but the market's not saying that right now. Again, broad-based strength.
So yeah, soft landing, maybe that is a little bit more in the cards. Let's also take a look at SMH representing chip stocks. Also had a big week, up more than 5%, clearing some recent highs as well. And ARKK. So this is representative of that more speculative risk on market, and we saw a gain of almost 11% for ARK, getting back up to that 40-week line. This would be the first touch of the 40-week line since November 2021. So
Yeah.
making a strong bounce off of multi-year lows just from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, really, and it just shows you that change in character. A lot of that has to do with Tesla, but there's lots of stocks that it's doing well. This is the speculative growth all across the board is doing well. So yeah, it's
And we
a
can't have a
positive
strong
sign.
market rally without the participation of those sorts of stocks.
Yeah, it does seem unlikely, especially early on when there's that sudden shift when there's like that such despair over speculative growth, and then to shift around and you're seeing, so these gains are really powerful this week and this month.
Okay, well, let's take a look at some individual names. We've got Etsy up 4.5% for the week, breaking out of a cup with handle on the weekly chart. I know this was also added to Swing Trader, but finishing the week with an upside reversal up 2.4%. Some nice support at the 21-day line. So this is an e-commerce stock that is looking really healthy technically.
Yeah, and yeah, as you say, there's a cup with handle on the weekly. So you drew the line there. It's just that there was a handle that wasn't quite there on a daily, but that's still valid. So it's in a buy zone from that, or it's just below on a daily chart. But I think it's actionable now. It's a nice bounce, as you say, the 21-day line or the 10-week line. There's other e-commerce firms that are doing well. Shopify is blown out. Mercado Libre has gone higher. A lot of the Chinese e-commerce firms are doing well. So it's got good company here in that regard. It doesn't have earnings for a few weeks, so that's nice. But Amazon does have earnings this coming Thursday. And you could imagine that if Amazon says nobody is buying anything online, that
Right.
probably wouldn't go well for Etsy. So, this is definitely a time to be paying attention to uh, some other rivals. Just because your stock doesn't have earnings, this one, these other ones might. So earnings are expected to turn around quite a bit, really rebound in 2023. So
Mhm.
I believe this is on Swing Trader and the IBD 50, or IBD 50.
Yeah, and not only is this a turnaround from a fundamental perspective, but also a technical perspective as well. And this is the first base formed above the 40-week line after getting back above that level shortly after the last earnings report. And so it's these earlier stage bases with stocks that are turning around that we especially like paying attention to.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point. It's above the 50-day line, 200-day line, and look, this bottomed way back in June. I mean, so
Mhm.
for a growth company like that to show that kind of strength when the market didn't bottom until October, or really almost came to lows in December, this one showed a
Right.
lot of strength in that regard.
Yes. All right, a good one to point out there, Ed. Let's also take a look at VC. This is one that we covered on IBD Live this morning, up almost 4%. Strong volume behind the move to clear an early entry. Maybe a little bit of a messy handle here. It did try to poke its head also above that 152 area, but a strong day nonetheless.
Yeah, and that volume really came on. When I was looking at it earlier, it was not very good volume. Yeah, I think you could probably see a handle in there. There was one. It's sort of messy, but right in there, that it's actionable. It found support of the 50-day line and 21-day line as well. So this is nice. This group, while it's 54, it's coming up. There's some other names. I know you and Ken looked at Allison Transmission yesterday, ALCSN, Autoliv gapped out of a base today on earnings. So there's that. I don't think I think Visteon doesn't have earnings for a few. Oh yeah, there's a number. Visteon doesn't have earnings for a few
Yeah,
weeks.
VC says 20 days. So
20 days. But just like as with Etsy, you have to pay attention. This is a Ford spinoff. I still think there's a lot of business with Ford, and I'm not sure if it works with GM, but Ford and GM have earnings this coming week. So watch out for what they have to say. Again, if they say we're going to ramp up production,
mhm.
probably a good sign for Visteon.
Exactly. And we got that RS line blue dot on the weekly chart, which we like to see, of course, underscoring that relative price outperformance versus the S&P 500 as it vies for a breakout here. And let's also take a look at LRCX. So gotta look at something in the chip space, and so chips did have a pretty good week. So here's Lam Research up 2.2% for the week. The chip equipment stock, it is right up against some resistance at 500, and we have earnings out of the way now.
Yeah, earnings are out of the way, and I'll be honest. They rallied on earnings and they fell back today because there was Intel and another bad earnings report. So the chips didn't have a great day today, but Lamb beat views and then had really weak guidance. I mean, they were not good at all. But people are looking beyond that. They're looking way beyond to say like maybe deep into 2024 when things will get better because a lot of these chip equipment makers rallied despite that. There was a lot of that performance, which again is a sign of a bullish market that embraces the positive. So yeah, if it gets above these levels from the last couple few days, that would probably be an entry, just a tiny early entry. It could end up turning into a handle, but that would take a few days. But yeah, this is a space that the earnings out being out of the way, it's that's a nice risk to take off.
Mm-hmm. That it is, and we have a trend line alert set here. So if it clears that level, we will know about it. All right. Well, as we prepare for the week ahead, Ed, what is it that we should be focused on? Because it really does seem like this week was a week to be adding that exposure. We'll have to see what next week brings. Best case scenario, we continue to rally no matter what the headlines are like next week. But as you mentioned towards the beginning of the show, even if we do pull back, that doesn't necessarily spell doom for this rally either, because pullbacks in the context of an uptrend could be potential buying opportunities as well, depending on how that shakes out.
Yeah, stocks could pull back to moving averages. They could form handles because a lot of leading stocks do look extended. Some are looking set up. But I would say, yeah, look, you don't want life to pass you by, and you don't want life-changing rallies to pass you by either. So whether this is or not, this is an opportunity to take advantage. So work on those watch lists. Look for stocks that are setting up or actionable.
Mm-hmm.
Do pay attention to earnings dates. Do show portfolio management. Don't get too aggressive. Still move in gradually because you don't want to just suddenly make a big jump into the market and then the market reverses and goes down 3%. And where you
Mm-hmm.
would have been okay before then with your exposure, you suddenly ramp up and you have a lot of losses. So still do it gradually. If this is a long sustained rally, you're going to have opportunities. You want to be getting in there, but just keep on just gradually expanding as the market keeps pulling you in.
Well said there, Ed. Okay, we'll get this show up on the site for your review a little bit later. And we hope that you tune in on Monday for IBD Live, where the conversation will continue. Investors.com/IBD Live for all the details. We'll see you there, and we will see you back here after the close on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone.